Hey guys, it's Marty, and I am back with the next installment of just some ramblings by an old guy here in Florida. So, last time, guys, I told you that I like to talk about sports, life in general, offer hopefully a little bit of advice here and there along the way from somebody who's seen a lot in this world and probably done a lot in this world in comparison. But guys, I was telling you last time that also retired now living in Florida. Florida is a nice place to live. It really is. Depends though on where in Florida you live, like it does in a lot of other states. Northern Florida, when I say northern Florida, I mean anything like, let's say Jacksonville area, kind of north of there. It does get very rural. Okay, it gets rural outside of those areas. They're nice. The weather isn't quite as hot in the summer as it is in Central Florida or, of course, in Southern Florida. But Florida is one of those places. It's a very big state, guys. It's a very large state. It has a lot of good. Of course, it has some bad. The good, you get basically good weather 12 months out of the year for the most part. Like I said, you got to watch out for an occasional storm, hurricane. In the summer, you get the pop up afternoon thunderstorms. But dollar for dollar, it's not a bad place to live. You have a lot of entertainment here in Florida, especially in the Central Florida area. I mean, as you know, you've got Disney World, you've got the Orlando Resort, aquarium. There's just a lot to do, especially if you live more in the central area. And then, of course, if you go down more south into the Miami area, well, you've got the beaches, you've got some swanky nightclubs and hotels, you get South Beach, things like that. Cost of living, it probably runs in, I guess it sort of would be towards the medium high end. Um, Especially in Central Florida, it has boomed, guys. I mean, they're constantly building new apartment buildings and townhomes. Average rent, let's say, for example, you want to rent a two-bedroom, let's say, apartment, you're probably in that vicinity of around $1,800 a month, give or take a little bit. You can find it a little less. Townhomes, same thing, anywhere from probably 1,800 to about 22, 2,300, depending on the size and exact location. But Florida in general, guys, is nice. It has it has plenty of medical care. We have a couple of major healthcare facilities. Advent Health has been dominant lately in the Florida area. Advent Health in the Central Florida area. You've got Orlando Health. But basically, guys, you get a lot of healthcare facilities, a lot of places, if you need medical care, there's no shortage. There's also no shortage of lawyers, guys. Seems like we have attorneys' offices every block. Um, Florida, though, is known for its traffic. Okay, we have what's known as Interstate I-4. I-4 is an absolute disaster, guys. Um, I've been down here for the better part of 20 years, and I-4 is always a disaster. It's pretty much bumper to bumper, especially on the east side. It's never they constantly make these so-called improvements, but I can honestly tell you, I-4 never really gets any better, especially in the morning rush hour, afternoon rush hour. It's just a very, very, very aggravating, irritating highway to drive on, plain and simple, in Central Florida. But that aside, if you're looking, to escape from where you live in a cold climate, you've had enough of the cold, snowy, icy weather. Well, it's hard to beat Florida in that respect. It keeps you, local, so to speak. You're only a few hours from a lot of other major places you want to go. You want to go to Massachusetts, you want to go anywhere along the East Coast. It's not that it's just not that far out of the way. It really isn't. Job market is still good in Florida. Um, there's really no shortage of jobs in Florida, and one of the reasons for that is, guys, Florida has a large retirement population, a lot of senior citizen retirement population. So that kind of leaves the jobs open for more of the younger people. Anybody in the any professionals or anybody else in their 20s, 30s, 40s, what have you. It's not difficult to get a job in Florida, guys. It's just not. You can do very well in Florida, depending on your field of expertise. Um, Lots of, just lots and lots and lots of jobs available at any given time in the Central Florida, even in the northern part of the state, guys. A little less, like I said, because it's a little more rural in the northern areas. but you do pretty well. If you have an area of expertise, you probably would have very little trouble finding a decent job. So as far as Florida goes, that's kind of what you're looking at. Um, now outside of Florida, you know what, guys? I can tell you what though. I remember when I grew up. I grew up in Massachusetts, born and raised in Boston. Grew up in Massachusetts. Lots of good memories from living in Massachusetts. I'm talking now back mostly in the '60s into the '70s, guys. It was just a great place to live. I lived about less than a quarter of a mile from the beach. We were like a quarter of a mile from the ocean back in the '60s. We had great music then. We had a lot of the beach music. We had the British invasion music coming in. So living in Massachusetts in the '60s was absolutely great. Um, you know, myself, some of my friends, we had a local band. We played guitars. We sang a little bit, but we had our own little band. That was great. So it was a lot of fun growing up in Massachusetts. But guys, the years go by quick. Okay, absolutely, years go by quick. We take a lot for granted, especially in our younger days, in our youth, we take a lot for granted. One of the things we take for granted a lot is our health. Now, if you don't have your health, guys, as you grow older, believe me, it throws a whole different outlook on, your everyday life. You've got to have your health. So whatever it takes, guys, keep your health, stay as healthy as you can. I know we all have our moments, but you got to try to eat right. You got to watch the weight. You got to, if you're smoking, you got to quit the smoking routine. You got to stop any heavy drinking, because believe it or not, your body is just like a machine. It's going to break down over the years, little by little, sometimes quicker than other people, but the body is going to break down, plain and simple. You get into your 40s, you still feel pretty good. You hit your 50s, you start to slow down a little bit. You feel your body slow down. By the time you get into your 60s, this, that, and the other thing starts going wrong. It's just the nature of the beast, guys. So don't take your youth for granted, guys. Take care of yourself. Try to do the right thing with your health on a daily basis. It's so important. It really is. There's not much, I can't emphasize that enough. And hey, look, and stay out of trouble, okay? Look, I know we live in a crazy world sometimes. It seems like the whole world has gone crazy, and this country is no exception. Politics are up and down. You don't know one day to the next what's going on in politics, the good and the bad. There's some terrible places to live in this country. Some are, a little better than others. But, let's be honest. You watch the news a little bit, and you find out there's just some states you don't want to live in, okay, because of all the nonsense that's going on in certain states, in the fraud and all this type of stuff that's going on. And, believe me, there's places you don't want to live. Florida is still a decent place to live. We don't have a lot of the problems other places have, plain and simple. There are some nice areas, still left in the country. South Carolina's nice. Florida's nice. You'll find a lot of places, a lot of places, states out in the Midwest is kind of nice. But then you get into places like New York City, that's a disaster. You've got places, like Michigan and Minnesota. Even Massachusetts has gotten really bad over the last several years. So there's just a lot of places out there, yeah, if you're living there right now, you know what I'm talking about. But if you're thinking of moving, guys, I'd be very careful with any of these places because the fact of the matter is, you're going to be living in a much more dangerous, state to live in with some of these states. So you got to be careful. Know what's going on around this country as you would, any other type of information. You got to do your research, is what I'm trying to say. Um, other things, guys, you got to look out for as you get older. And this sounds crazy. Is got to take care of your money, guys. Okay, you got to make the money while you're young. Make the money while you're young. Now, I'm not saying you deprive yourself and don't treat yourself, along the way. We all have to do that. It's what keeps us going. But guys, you've got to put the money away for when you get older. Heck, at this point, we don't even know if Social Security is going to be available in another, 15, 20 years. But you got to put your money away, guys. Get yourself in some good investment opportunities. Be careful. There's a lot of bad out there. So, get yourself into some reputable investment opportunities, with whether you're working on a 401k or what have you. You've got to realize that the money you're saving today will be a big difference in how you have to live your life later on in life, especially if you get injured, you get hurt. You're going to have to rely on that money when you're retired. Yeah, you'll hopefully still have Social Security, but you'll also have that retirement money coming in. So I can't stress enough, guys, how important it is. Put the money away as much as you can while you're young. Plain and simple. I promise you, looking back over the years, I wish I had done more of that, plain and simple. And it's all, hindsight's always 2020, guys, but I think you know what I'm trying to say with that. Guys, all things considered now, like I said, I'm an old guy. I'm retired in Florida. Love my sports, watch my sports, football, mostly football, basketball, baseball. I love watching sports. I still love predicting the outcome of the games, guys, because I was so very good at that. Been good at that all my life. Plain and simple. Made a lot of money for a lot of people. Plain and simple. That's what I did. And I made some money of my own as well, but I gave it up, guys, over the years as far as myself betting on sports. You get older, you start taking care of your money a little more, and that's what it's all about. Okay, like I said, that's what it's all about. But everything I mention to you guys when I make these videos, I promise you, I'm just trying to pass along some advice from somebody who's been up and down a lot of roads. Some of those roads are nice and smooth, some not so much. And I mean in every part of life, financially, your health, your jobs, hey, nobody loves getting up early in the morning and going to their job, 5 days a week or what have you. Nobody likes doing that. Now, that doesn't mean you hate your job, but let's be honest, who likes getting out of bed at, what is it, 6:30, 7:30 in the morning? Fight, fight your way back and forth to work every day. Put up with all the nonsense a lot of people have to put up with on their job every day. It's not pleasant, guys. It's not pleasant, but unfortunately, it's the road most of us will be stuck with most of our working years. If you're lucky enough to have a job you love, fantastic. If you're lucky enough to be self-employed and you do well, fantastic. That's, all the more power to you. You'll probably find yourself live a much happier, less stressful life in those situations. I'm sure you will, as a matter of fact. But you know what, guys? I'm looking forward right now for a couple of weeks when the NFL season starts. I just love watching football. Of course, the baseball season's winding down, as I mentioned in my last video. But I love sports, guys. I just love passing along my life experiences, hopefully help out other people along the lines. So you know what, guys? Pretty much for this video, that's it. Kind of short and sweet. But as always, guys, I hope any of the information I've been able to pass along today is going to help some people. Maybe make it think a little bit more about what you got going on in your life. Guys, strive to be happy. That's what life's all about. Take care of yourself. Keep your friends and your loved ones close. Okay, friends and family. Some of the most important things you'll ever do in your life will involve friends and family. So, guys, do whatever it takes. Keep the people closest to you close. All right. I'll talk with you again soon, guys. So for now, this is this old guy in Florida signing off. Take care.